quit. They encouraged me to quit on late in 19. But anyway, quit or they walked out or whatever.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. I think we hope that we'll have some more people show up, but if not, we'll just buzz through the things that we can. This is the Washington Area Highway Transportation Committee meeting. It is Tuesday, May 29th, 2018. And we need a roll call, Gina.
Mark Wessels, Ed Fisher.
Here.
Judy Wagner, Roy Frankenberg,
Here.
Bob Ingeman, Bill Stratman.
Here.
Mayor Lucy, Joe Holtmeyer, Danny Cassett,
Here.
L.B. Eckelkamp, Bill Miller,
Present.
Tim Brinker,
Here.
Steve Sullentrup.
Please stand. Pledge allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, all. Approval of the minutes. We can't do that because of the number of people we have, so we will forego that. Amtrak, I think that's a...
I can give you an
John?
update on Amtrak real quick.
Okay, very good. Super.
As far as the ridership, I do not know that. I will give people an update on the actual horn blowing that's going through town.
Yes.
Last Wednesday, I got a call from the Federal Railway Administration, or Railroad Administration, and they indicated that they were looking into this, like I've been reporting for the past few months. There's an automatic tripping program that is mandated on all new rail cars, and where the engineer himself does not have to actually press the horn to allow the actual horn to go off. It automatically does it digitally within the train itself. It is actually catching the depot. The depot has a pedestrian crossing as in the program, okay, and it's catching that as the reason why the horn's going off. So they're looking into it on their end, working with Amtrak and Union Pacific to see if that's necessary to change that kind of programming within the train cars. It is possible that some additional signage may need to be put up around the depot area in order for them to remove that from the actual system itself. They did indicate that they believe the city owns that pedestrian crossing. So I have no idea. We've not looked into that or done any title work. They did go as far as to check with MoDOT to verify that. So we're kind of looking into that, but it did look like it was a signage situation. So could be a potential minor cost of some signage. Once that signage goes off, they can reprogram it and they can automatically take that away.
So
So
the other-
it's a system change is what it is.
Yeah, the other pedestrian crossing then to the east,
Is correct. That's already been handled. It's already removed from the
That's already
system.
been
So it's
removed.
not that one. It's not Lafayette, and it's not Kingsland Drive. It is the actual Amtrak depot itself.
got it,
So we'll be working with Amtrak to try to get that corrected.
very good.
So hopefully we'll see
Good to
something
know. Good to
sooner than later.
Okay, any questions, comments? Hearing none? I guess we're going into Highway 47 Missouri River Bridge. Robert, anything?
Only what I've read in the paper, that the final 5 beams are supposed to go up this week, which ought to be kind of exciting.
You bet. Every day is an excitement.
Usually, once that first of the final 5 beam goes up, it's gonna look like
It looks like a
the
bridge, huh?
bridge is complete.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, when you're coming up on it from the south, it really looks higher, a lot higher than the current bridge.
Because of the thickness of those girders, and they had to have the same clearance underneath, all the support for the current bridge is above the bridge. All the support for the new bridge is below the bridge, so it had to be higher.
Yeah.
Had to buy more fishing line to get to the water now.
Right,
There you go.
from that overload.
Right. Just as a side note, the Freight Way had their freight summit down in St. Louis this past week, and one of the things they did is they took a group out on the Tom Sawyer, the boat, and showed us the riverfront of St. Louis. And quite honestly, you can see the development of what has happened to bridges for the last 150 years. I mean, the progression of what, you see the Eads, and you see the McKinley, you see the new Mutual. Merchants. Yeah, it's sitting there, not even being used, or it's still being used, I guess. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting progression, and you're looking underneath. You're seeing the underside of these bridges, and you can see them all. Turn your head one way or the other, and you can see all of them. So it's really kind of interesting where this one fits in. This one's going to be more modern looking, quite honestly, because it doesn't have that top structure. It'll be a unique bridge, no question about it. So that's just a side note.
Bill, how are the preparations going for the grand opening of the bridge?
Judy indicated in her email to me that she will be contacting the city about this week yet to work on it, so that was her email. That's all I know.
December the 5th, I think, is a tentative,
December the 5th?
I think that's tentative, very tentative, yeah.
What day of the week is that?
Gina's looking it up.
I know, let me
No,
check
I
back,
can't
it might be the,
I thought it was the 8th.
The Wednesday.
yeah, I think it's gonna be the Saturday.
I thought it was the 8th.
Yeah, Saturday's the 8th.
There you go.
No, somewhere in that first week of December.
Yeah, whatever.
It's the first part.
First week of December,
We'll see.
that's what they're looking at. So, we've discussed some preliminary stuff for it, and, I think, like I said, it'll be up to her when she wants to go ahead and fully commit to that. I think she wanted to wait for the end of this month, check on the schedule with the bridge, so I think everything should be fine. So it's very tentative.
Yeah.
Going into December 3rd.
This year, yeah.
It'll be this year. How about that?
There you go. Any comments, questions? Hearing none. ADA transition plans?
Yes, we have a presentation this evening from HDR Kevin Creedy at the City Council Admin Ops meeting. Part of that presentation is to just let the city know kind of where we are in compliance. I will say that we're probably looking at somewhere about 90 to 95% of the sidewalks and things are not compliant, which is not a surprising number to me at all. A lot of it has to do with just cross slopes. Slopes cannot exceed 2% max cross slope in town. Most of them are running 2.5 to 3, so it's not a surprising factor. But within this report and this plan, it will identify dollars to bring us into compliance. Now, it does not set hard deadlines per se. It just gives us some direction on where to move forward in the future. Keep in mind, this plan was to be in place, I believe, in 1993. So we are now getting caught up. We will be the second community in Franklin County behind Berger. City of Berger has theirs completed. Ours is the most extensive, obviously. So this puts us in a pretty good standing for future grant applications. I know East West Gateway in their current STP grant has quite a high scoring that are attributed to having this plan in place. So it's a working document. Whenever they present this evening, I think there may be some sticker shock and maybe some eyes might be opened up a little bit, but it is a working document and it's something we're striving to do every single day with all of our projects. So just keep that in mind, but the presentation will be this evening and we would hope to move forward with getting that adopted at the council meeting next Monday, which would put us on schedule essentially for getting in this year's STIP application.
So there is no hard deadline then for
There's
this to
not.
all be completed?
Well, the hard deadline was 1993, so.
Yeah, that's right.
Is there a hard deadline? No, it's self-imposed,
Self.
and it can always be amended. It's not something that anyone's forcing to us, other than have it in place in a document moving forward. And I would say this is a pretty complete document. I mean, it has, there's a lot of tools that city staff can use to prioritize, where we put our money to become ADA compliant.
Yeah.
Sidewalks obviously function if they're 3% cross slope, but they may not be ADA compliant, so,
Very good.
okay?
Any questions for John?
Where is the presentation this evening, or is that
It's in the council chambers at 7 PM.
okay? And is that a workshop of some sort, or just a public hearing?
That's just
What's
an
a-
open meeting that we have.
Strictly about this?
No,
It's our
it's a monthly,
operations meeting.
Okay.
yep. It's a monthly meeting where essentially all department heads get together and explain operations going around the city,
It is open to the public? What time? 7?
7 PM.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Highway 47 Corridor Committee? Anything, John?
I have no report.
Have they had a
We have
meeting?
no activity. I think we have a meeting
I don't
this
think we
month.
had a meeting, no. How about the
Scheduled
Franklin
for
County
June.
Transportation Committee too, Tim?
Well, in lieu of that, I'm going to delve off into the Freight Week last
Go
week.
for it. You bet.
Bill and I, the chairman and I, were fortunate enough to attend last week Freight Week STL. It was the third annual down in St. Louis, and it was a very impressive situation, and yet kind of quasi-intimidating too, because the numbers speak to the inadequacies of our preparedness for the future of freight as it relates to transportation and methods with which to provide it. The Institute for Trade Transportation Studies is the go-to institute for that industry in terms of analysis. The St. Louis Regional Freightway was established to create a comprehensive regional approach to freight management, infrastructure, and marketing to position the bi-state region, which we just became a member of bi-state, by the way, to take full economic advantage of the 45% growth in freight value projected over the next 25 years. That's a huge impact. That's darn near doubling in 2.5 decades. And if you put that into real numbers, it creates an issue for us. Now, what they're doing, though, is providing some opportunities to address these issues that are coming before us. There's a new U.S. Department of Labor truck driver apprenticeship program, which, you know, you go to the help wanted section of any publication, and it's full of, if you can see and work a gas pedal and shift a gear, boy, we need you here. We need truck drivers. I mean, they're desperate for operators. That combined with the real statistic of efficiencies operating on the waterways of today's world, there's a neat little stat I like to say, whereas 15 barges is equivalent to 216 rail cars, which is equivalent to 1,050 tractor trailers. So the efficiencies put in the scale of transportation dollars far outweigh. The river flow is the way to go, and St. Louis is really truly trying to take advantage of that with the Plaquemines agreement that's kind of on paper, and yet we haven't dug deep yet, but they are really getting there in this agreement to do with Jeffco's port, and I think it lends a great opportunity for our county, especially in Franklin, with the Missouri here and with the opportunities we have perhaps just east of Washington on the river in terms of waterway. We have our rail, we have our highways that are sufficient, and we're getting there even better. We have the Interstate 44 and the connector of 47 up to 70, so we are in a prime position to address this growth here out west, and I tried to make that very well known at the East-West Gateway table I was at. I'm sure Bill was carrying the tune as well. But really a neat, eye-opening / great exposure opportunity for all of us here in Franklin County. And if they have this thing next year, what I'd like to do is see this committee get a table down there and get down there and see what this transportation future holds for not only us, but the entire bi-state region. I think it can really put St. Louis head and shoulders above anybody else on that Mississippi corridor and get back to the roots of, you know, where it needs to be. And that is the gateway is going to be the freightway now. So, I mean, it's exciting. It's on the horizon. It was well worth attending. I don't know if you want to add.
I was taken back by the Plaquemines agreement with the freightway system. They've already, in principle, agreed to. Plaquemines is a outfit that makes the boats, as I understand it. They make the actual boats that are going to traverse the rivers, and they're talking just in the scale. Like some of these, the first thing that happened was the Panama Canal was widened. All right, Panama Canal was widened to probably twice its size. So now the ships can now go that would have to come from the east or from the west. Major ships, they can traverse through the Panama Canal. Now, the two big ports of entry are on the East Coast and on the West Coast. And they're full. They can't really handle much more. But the Port of New Orleans is where they're keying on now for the future and coming up the Mississippi River with the goods and services instead of moving them through the Panama and over here or wherever to the central part of the U.S. and then dispersing the goods and services to the central part of Missouri. That's the idea, but the Mississippi River is now coming back to be that super highway for movement of goods and services. That's what I took from it. And these boats that are being developed will carry up to 25, what is it, 18,000 of these containers that you see on the back of a train. They only put 2 on a car, one on top of the other. They're talking about these traversing up to, just the first step, maybe just to Memphis. And it would take, what, 3-day turnaround or something like that, or 7, I forget what it was, 3 or 7.
These vessels are wake-free, too.
And they're wake-free.
Which is,
So they're going to, this is a tremendous amount of goods and services that are going to come up the Mississippi instead of being dumped off at the ports, and then each way they'd have to be funneled one way or the other into the rest of the U.S. St. Louis is just keyed for it. I mean, they are already one of the largest agricultural products, for movement of agricultural products come through St. Louis ports, barges and whatever. And the reason that they're keying on St. Louis is that there's this freeze line weather. What is it? They call it the freeze line. It doesn't freeze. The Mississippi River doesn't freeze and put it out of commission. St. Louis is the last port that's still open water. So that's kind of a limitation. If they didn't have that, if there wasn't a limitation, they could go all the way up. But the limitation is that it freezes over. So St. Louis is in the, and Jefferson County really is in a catbird seat. The way it looks to me, they're taking the old Doe Run plant. Is that the one that?
Yes.
The old lead plant that's on the river, and literally turning that into a port. And that's what this Plaquemines Mines agreement, and that port, that new port that they're talking about there, those two are working, they're gonna be working together. That's where it's gonna stop, and that's where it's gonna probably traverse. I kept asking, how does this work? Because the Missouri River, we're on the Missouri River, we're not on the Mississippi. How does the Missouri River come into it? He said, well, you gotta look at it as like the wheel and the spokes. They kept saying wheel and spokes, okay? We could be, let's say there was some type of a port that is smaller, that could be a collection point for either these container units and or other products or goods and services that are coming out of the Midwest. And they would then feed into the Jefferson County to be then put on boats to take it out and into the ocean, into the rest of the world. That, I guess, is what, that's our future, is the way I look at it. If there was, do we have the product that could be put into containers that would be shipped, that could be shipped that way? Large amounts of either foodstuffs or coal or, and that's what's going now. But, you know, in the past, if you go back 100 years, the Missouri River had ports all over the place. Washington probably had ports. I mean, you can see the vestiges of the old ports down on Front Street, you know, by the trail, that sheer concrete. You can see the hookups where the barges hooked up. I mean, it's like we were there 100 years ago or more. Maybe it's going in, maybe it's going to take a full circle. It's hard to envision, though, that we would produce something that, you know, I look at MFA. Farmers take their stuff to MFA, their food stuff, their corn, their wheat, their whatever. How does MFA then? What do they do with them? Do they put them on trucks and truck it down to St. Louis? Or to the grain companies on the east side? You know, Can-Am Steel. I mean, they ship their stuff all by trucks, whatever.
I think the short answer to that, Bill, and maybe the more optimistic, is going to be if we can get the transportation in and out of here, we can make it here. We've got the people here.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, why not have the industry start coming to here? And whatever it is that the world needs, we're right here in the middle of this country, so we can pull from all the resources all around us.
Exactly.
Once we get transportation to link Indianapolis to St. Louis to Kansas City, we've got this huge metro area that we can move back and forth from for goods and services, and we can put it all on these boats. And I think that whenever that starts to happen, then the Missouri River becomes another one of those big highways that hasn't been used for years because trucks became cheaper than the steamboats, if you will.
That's right.
And the trains were cheaper than the steamboats. And we have all of that right now. So I think that whatever you can envision the world needing, we can produce here, and we need to let people know that we will accommodate them so that the Amazons of our world don't go somewhere else next time.
That's exactly right.
But the Amazons of the world also look at the demographic reality that we all live with every day, and that is April was 3.3% unemployment rate. That number is constrictive when it comes to attracting business and industry. Because what you end up doing, and Darren, you know that better than probably anybody in this room, is then you just have industry take it from industry. What we need to focus on is where the school district and where these vocational institutions are focusing, thank goodness now, and that is turning around this process with which you don't have to go away to a four-year college to earn a hell of a living.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Thank you,
And-
God bless you. But I mean, and that's the reality of it. And I think the governmental entities at state level and federal level are truly realizing this. I was told this in DC when I was there by Kellyanne Conway, so that's one of the president's focuses. Look, not everybody is cut for that, but the need exists for this. So, and that's really a big determining factor and a challenge we all have to keep these younger employees or potential employees around to fulfill the needs and earn a great living and raise their families here, so.
And I think also it's not just about the 3% unemployed. I think it might be about the 30 to 40% that are underemployed. In other words, they could be making more if they move somewhere else to go make more money. So to have
That's
industry.
a boring statistic I don't have. I know who's working and.
And I just made that one up. I don't know what that number is, but I think that if it is industry competing with other industries for jobs, that's good for our people here. In other words, rather than me moving to one of the coasts to be able to make $20 to $30 an hour and or accepting a job here for $10 to $12 an hour, I think that if we do get the industries in here that'll pay that higher rate, I think transportation's all tied right to that.
Absolutely.
And so we have to be able to get the goods in and out. And then I think we say that, no, the unemployment is not a bad thing here. Our people will work. We're not going to sit back and accept welfare. We're going to go out and do a job for half what we could get if we move somewhere else.
But the movement of goods and services is really, has become a key factor in where people build their plants and build their businesses. Just kind of a visual, this is kind of a visual of the different, in the red, you will notice these are the areas that are already joined together freight systems, freight ideas. And what they've done is they've taken areas of the country and they put all their resources together to promote their individual areas. Now, they're all around us. There's none in St. Louis is just now maybe coming, not lately, because it's been in the freight business for years, 100 years or more, but now it's consolidating under the Freightways, St. Louis Regional Freightways name to try to pull all this freight stuff together for the whole area, and we're part of it as being part of East-West Gateway. And I guess, Tim, you said we were just
And by state, yeah.
part of Bi-State. When did that occur? I think I was asked that question and I
It just
couldn't
went
answer.
through. That
When?
legislation just got passed
It just got passed.
2 weeks ago,
Okay,
introduced by Nate Tate.
right, Nate Tate did it, that's correct.
Got something done transportation-wise.
So anyway, it's an exciting idea, and it's already somewhat online to go forward with this Jefferson County plan and this Plaxmire agreement. Those two, if that works out, you will see this whole thing open up big time, is what it looks like to me. It's right there. And they've got the original proposals, the original agreements in place to make it happen. So it's
Bill, for years, there's been talk about getting a port authority here. Is there any justification for that?
after going to this thing, I think we gotta start talking about ports at the local level. You bet. And for what purpose? You know, it isn't necessarily for Washington, but a port has to, if we want to have the goods and services produced, and maybe we do, but if we had a place where people could bring their goods and services that then could be put on different paths to get to where they want to go, I think that we need to start doing. How many businesses in the area, I say the area, let's say all of Franklin County, all of Warren County, or wherever, would have things to ship out of the local area.
You just think of the grain alone.
This is just the grain, agricultural products is what comes to market, but
You know, we don't seem to have much barge traffic, though, not anywhere near compared to the Mississippi River.
that's true. It's heavy on the Mississippi River. I mean, you go up and down that river when there's Tom Sawyer, and you really see how much freight business is actually transacted on the Mississippi River at St. Louis, both sides of the river.
And one of the reasons is because the fully loaded barges are taking on too much depth, okay?
Yeah.
We have a hard time maintaining that 14-foot deep channel. And then we had the big setback for, 5 or 10 years with trying to decide whether we were a native habitat or a commerce way. And now it's been set that we are commerce on the Missouri River. So I think it may be time for that. The other thing is, if Can-Am decides they want to go to manufacturing these huge joists, okay? Do they have to move somewhere other than Washington, Missouri to do it, or do we give them a way of getting them on barges here in Washington so that they can transport them? We couldn't even get our beams here without using a barge to get them up here for our own bridge. So if we want to have a beam manufacturer in Washington, they may need that. So I think a port authority is a good idea to start thinking along those lines and making sure that whenever somebody comes up with a reason why Washington can't grow because, let's throw it out there, this is how we can grow. And maybe we keep track of what's going on with the port that's coming in South St. Louis.
That's a key.
Yeah.
The other thing is, we've got a team track. We've put some money where our mouth is on this freight thing, and it's sitting down there not getting used. Now, you know, we've been waiting for an opportunity to put this, it's getting, yeah, I understand, but I'm just saying now,
You could get beat up. Huh?
well, not using its potential.
I think we had some great benefit, as I've said
It is.
before.
Well, the issue with Can-Am, and every single time we've ever talked to them about utilizing it more to go ahead and get steel, was the fact of the trucking industry is so cutthroat, and they don't want to keep inventory. And so what they do is, if they needed the product, they just call up the trucking company and they can get it out within a day, 24 hours. If you go through the rail, what they've had to wait for is like a 4 to 5 day delay. They can get it that way, and they can get it right out there to the plant, but they don't want to have that inventory sitting around. So they typically, I think what they've experienced is that the trucking industry is so, I mean, it is cutthroat, and they will get the price there a lot cheaper, quicker than any other way that they can. And that's the reason why Can-Am still, you know, you see those trucks going out in and out of there, even when they ship it out. They don't want to wait, so.
And I think Commissioner Brinker started the conversation. We need truck drivers. There's no truck drivers. So all of a sudden,
But the thing, if you had more industries down there, you're going to have to, you know, we're going to have to expend some more funds to go ahead and get that thing larger than what it is. It is, I don't want to say it's at its capacity, but really, there's not a lot more. You're going to have to sit there and buy some equipment and start moving some stuff around in order to make that thing,
you're right.
you know, work, legitimate.
For it to
So-
become a legitimate, say it's a mini port or whatever they
Yeah.
call these
Right.
places for the collection of goods and services to be put on a rail car at this point,
Mm-hmm.
in a container. Again, we can put these containers on the rail cars. That's the other part that had been missing before. They weren't using the trains for containers necessarily.
Right.
Uh,
I think what keeps like WEG transformers from using them too,
Yes.
or as far as shipping them out, is then you've got the cost to load it on the truck, and once you've done that, you'd have to go up there, unload it, load it again on another, you know, for freight, and then, you know, there's that added cost to it. And so it hasn't also, it's just like I said, the trucking industry is so cutthroat, they're still able to go ahead and get a cheaper deal that way. That's every time we've approached those industries that we think, how can we help you use this more or anything, that's always been the answer that we get.
And that may be, Tim, at the county level, maybe more so, where we can get the businesses that do ship whatever to understand that there's an opportunity here for them to maybe change the way they ship stuff. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and it's site analysis too. Where is it going to be most impactful for the greater good too? You know,
Exactly.
That's going to be real important. I mean, they do an aerial of it from the length of the county. And you look at that stretch of the river and go, okay, where's the most logical as it relates to where we are? Is it points west of town? Is it in town? Is it points east?
Well, because the future of any bigger business coming in is going to be based on where they can ship, how they can get their goods and services out of where they're building it.
Ingress, egress, yeah, that's exactly right.
Just one other item on the Port Authority, we did look into that, if you'll remember, 5, 6 years ago. I don't know what it's been, it might even be
Bernie
longer.
brought the guy from St. Joe down.
We had the lady from, I guess it's through MoDOT, that they really did not encourage us to start a Port Authority because they really didn't have any funding for the ones that were in place. And that's always been the issue, is that they don't have enough funding to go ahead and help with those. So, and there's quite a few of them, I think, that you've got port authorities out there where there's actually no physical port whatsoever. It just exists as a district. And some communities use it. No, that's right. Some communities use it for industrial purposes too, as, you know, to go ahead and develop ground. But, you know, I don't know.
It shows you the administrative direction will change from the top, and that, look, there's infrastructure bucks that are gonna be invested in this kind of thing.
That's right, that's right, that's right.
And that was the roadblock in the way last time, so to
Right,
speak, was
absolutely.
that there was no funding source. You could create it, but what were we gonna fund it with? And the state didn't have anything.
Boatload of private interest now, too.
That's exactly right. You've got private money coming in with public monies to, on many of these port projects, like the bridge that, what's the one you talked about? Not the McKinley, but the other.
Merchants?
Merchant Bridge. That's a $200 million project, and they've got over $100 million from private industry, as I understand, to get that done. That's how key that one bridge is, because it does nothing but move freight, pretty much. Anyway, that's a.
I would say that whether we call it a port authority or whether we call it somebody that's going to be checking into ports so that we're aware of what's going on as a transportation committee, I mean, I would make a motion, but that's kind of useless today, that we have somebody or some subcommittee or something like that that keeps track of what you guys are seeing right now.
Well, we made contact. Mary Lammy is the gal who is the executive director of the St. Louis Regional Freightways. And of course, now that we are East-West Gateway and we are part of Bi-State, we're in this already. We're in it.
And we have a representative on the Freightway in Bill,
Yeah.
and East-West Gateway be the county commission, so we have access and exposure. What I'm trying to work now is a opportunity for a board seat on the Bi-State, once we get into it further. And that's important. It's gonna be
Yeah.
important for our county. Why belong if you can't have a voice? And that's where it's going next.
And the other tie-in, not just because we talk about ports, but we've got rail systems that are not being utilized fully in Franklin County. Rail systems that, I mean, Union's got 2 or 3, Pacific's got rail.
Yeah, that's
You know, somebody could coordinate that and make that, you know, you've got the rail system to take it to a port. That's kind of, it's already there. That's just a idea. So we've got a lot of pieces already in place, and we've got a structure now with the St. Louis Freightway, St. Louis Regional Freightway, to ask them and get their input as to how we can go forward or whatever. So anyway, that's it.
Thank you.
You bet, Tim. Thank you. All right, we've got anybody from Warren County? Nothing? Airport, Raymond?
Okay, there is a construction update, which I'm going to turn over to John. We've all been a little bit frustrated with the delays on that.
Very
I
much.
know John has too, so I'm going to drop that one on you right at the beginning here.
Yeah, that project is a phase 1 and phase 2 in order to get jets and larger planes into the fueling areas of the airport. We are behind on phase 1 fairly substantially, actually. I'm going to say it's 15 to 20 days behind schedule on that. The contractor is trying to indicate that there's some weather delays. I'm in disagreement with them, and so is our consultant as well. They are subject to $750 a day in liquidated damages, and we've been updating them twice a week with the dollar number that we're going to pursue. So we are able to get planes in from the hangars onto the actual taxiways, things of that nature, but it is causing some delays in our fueling, and I'm sure Ray will brief you on that as well. But that's the big concern here. This is a 90-10 cost share or grant from MoDOT. So in doing so, I did reach out to MoDOT to see how the liquidated damages play out. Does the city only receive 10% of those liquidated damages, so $75 a day? They did indicate that that was the case. So they provide 90% of the funding, 90 cents on the dollar. We only get 10 cents on the dollar back in liquidated damages. The good news with that, though, is the 90 cents on the dollar that we lose goes back into our entitlement funding available. So on the front end, it looks like we lose, we're not getting our money back initially, but it does go back into our funding available for future projects, which is a great thing. So it's not really a total loss. It's just a temporarily, you don't get the dollars up front. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that there is some positives that come out of that, pursuing that liquidated damages, other than the fact that we're behind schedule. They had some issues with gradation on rock. I believe that those were taken care of late last week. So I have not talked to our consultant today. That will be this afternoon. We'll see if we can hopefully move forward with getting that paving done. But we are pretty substantially behind schedule. And if you need anything else,
Yeah.
I'll turn it back to Ray.
The fueling of the jet traffic out there, we are able to maintain that because we fuel them through a truck. So the jets and all of the aircraft are able to get on and off the runway and back and forth to the hangars during all phases. It's just the avgas fuel pumps that we've lost the ability to access. Now, there are a few local guys with smaller planes that were able to pull them through the grass when it's dry, and we have been having some drought, so we've been able to fuel a few of them. But about 50% of our fuel sales out there is gasoline, aviation gasoline versus the jet fuel, and so we are losing those sales right now. And as we said, I was frustrated last time, didn't fully understand it, so I appreciate John's explanation of it. The city and Washington Aviation are losing the ability to sell that fuel and make the money on that. I could see them not wanting to just give us the liquidated damages, I guess, because it might go to general fund. But if they're at least going back to where they're available for us in the airport entitlement funds, we can use it for airport projects in the future. So that is a lot better impression than I had before of us not getting the liquidated damages, because how do the money providers actually get damaged by this? So I was excited to hear that. Okay, and then on to other items. We have been, right now we are still full. The hangars are all rented up. We still have hangars on the waiting list. We have started discussions at the meeting of when do we need to think about adding more hangars and so forth. We do have a lot of the people there want to move from the older hangars to the new and are willing to pay the difference. It brought up the question of whether or not we're appropriately charging the right amount for our services at the airport and our hangars, and we're going to do a survey on that and make some decisions in the coming months on what we charge. Another item on the discussion list was the hiking biking trail, which I feel is probably more of a transportation related item and a city item right now, but we see no problem with it coming through the airport property as long as it stays off of our safety zones and our runoff zones. Should not be a problem at all.
Fantastic.
And with that, we do have an updated presentation now showing some of the activities that have been going on at the airport on a regular basis. So if anybody wants their group or organization to hear a presentation of the airport, I've got a new and improved presentation that I'm offering.
Very good. Very good.
I would add one more thing as well. Council did make a decision to move forward with a 3-month extension of the current FBO contract while we're working through negotiations with Washington Aviation. So.
Are the corporate jets still coming in on a pretty regular basis?
Yes. Yeah, we don't feel that it has negatively impacted those, but at this point in time, we're not working real close to them. But whenever they do come in, the contractor has been working with us. Everybody moves away because we don't want to be standing within 50 or 75 feet of where that plane's going to be taxiing through. So we don't feel that that has hurt us. So I expect my jet fuel sales is kind of one way of measuring that, to stay pretty similar to what it has been last year.
Any questions, comments? Team Track, I think we've talked about that. One thing with the freightway system, you need to go to the website, thefreightways.com, and update the information. I think it shows, there's two little stars that show up in Franklin County of where there is something to do with freight. And one of them is the city of Washington's, and it says Hydeman Industrial Park. And it says land for sale from 8,000 to 1.25 million. It really needs to be updated completely. Unions is just as bad, and I should have told Tim, if you can, just go to that website and get it updated so that at least if somebody clicks on it, at least they'll have good information. So that's just.
It's freightways.com?
Yeah, thefreightway.com. Okay, East-West Parkway, John?
The only report I have is there is a commercial addition going on the current building owned by Mr. Kleinheider, which is on the east side across from Casey's. We don't know what the use would be there, but it's just a commercial addition. Other than that, I don't have a report.
I think it's similar to what he's already got built next to it.
Yeah, it's an addition, it would look similar, but I would have no idea
Yeah,
what the use would be, or,
Do you
who's
have to
moving
get a
in.
permit or anything for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, the use.
Yeah,
of it,
I just
right.
don't know
It'll
whose
be- it'll be
tenants are
rentals,
gonna be.
right, whatever.
Yeah, no, I just know it's a commercial addition.
Right, okay. And while you're at that intersection, how about the new gas station? Any problems with the in and outs or whatever?
You know, I've not been briefed on anything that would, traffic-wise, that would, be negative at the intersection. I know Bill Hammack, our fire chief, has been concerned about High Street, southbound High Street turning on eastbound 100, but that's always been a problem,
Yeah.
regardless of Casey's going in or not. So keep in mind, we do have a 3-year, I believe, timeline to put in a right-in, right-out from the Casey's on the High Street. They agreed to that, when the plan got approved, to make that full access intersection a right-in, right-out. The idea behind that is that as things progress further south, that the traffic would be much higher volume on High Street. So it was a proactive measure to ensure we have a mechanism to restrict access. The last thing we wanted to do was a Phoenix Center Drive rabbit trail situation.
Yeah.
So
It's good that you're monitoring it, and there is no problems, basically.
there's no problems that I've experienced.
Good.
I think it's a busy location,
Fantastic.
so.
Good biscuit and gravy, I tell you that.
Yeah. Public transportation, no one here. Any other business? I was at a dealer meeting, and I was talking to the people from down in Poplar Bluff, all right? And we were talking about zoning along highways. And they claim that they have got zoning that they put the highway in the city limits and are then, of course, developing not contiguous to the city. Has that changed? Yeah, has that changed? We checked this, I thought, years ago, but I don't know whether something's changed or whether they were giving me something that was.
No, it didn't change. We tried it and actually got voted down or spoke down, I guess.
Well, the thing that.
Opportunity to do
The
that.
thing that, I remember what we tried to do was, we wanted to connect some areas, or at least so our police department, as they would go
Yes.
down 100, wouldn't be going in and out of the city limits, especially on the west.
Right.
And the policy at the time, and this is something we can ask Judy next month, but the policy at the time was, if MoDOT would send out letters to the property owners that were adjacent, and if they were opposed to it, then MoDOT would not move forward. And that's basically how all of that was nixed back then. It was, I think Watermans were opposed to it. They were one of them. There were some others that were opposed to it. And so they signed letters, and MoDOT said, well, no, you can't do that, based on
So
that public input. To me, I question the how they did that, but that was MoDOT's policy, and we tried to go ahead and work within it, and,
So as
like I
long
said,
as what difference would it make to the property owners?
they just, I guess,
They
felt
choose
it
not
would be
to
that
sell
much
it.
easier for them to go ahead and be
Their zoning
annexed
doesn't
into the
change.
city, and they didn't want to have anything to do with that.
Well, I know if we were talking about annexing the right-of-way east,
Correct.
and then, I know that the Bulls Fire District had heartburn with it for whatever reason, because of jurisdictional issues of responses and who gets called out and dispatched to that car accident.
Right.
You know, and that kind of thing.
yeah.
That was a big hook, if you will.
That was another thing, yes, when we were doing the
High
highway
school.
to the east.
For the
So,
high
Yeah,
school.
I mean, you could get to a point, I think if that's still allowable, and I don't know if any laws have changed regarding that.
Okay.
I think it's a,
Well, it's a way for communities to
Ideal
grow.
way.
It's a way for us to grow commercially.
especially on the corridor like that.
And to provide services to someone who wants to do something large,
Yeah, it doesn't
whether it's
change-
industrial or school or whatever it is.
Right, it doesn't change the people along there. They don't really have to.
no, they don't have to come into the
They don't
city,
have to
it's
do
just, it
anything.
would just be the right of way, but MoDOT had that policy in place that's basically the reason why they wouldn't allow that to be annexed, that right of way to be annexed. We wanted to do it, we wanted all the way
I
out
remember, it's been
to
years now.
Hyden Industrial Park.
Our city codes do allow it, though. They don't have an issue or a
Well, we don't,
statement about
there's no
flag
problem
lots.
with us, like I said, it's MoDOT's policy that they don't want to go ahead and annex in right of way
Well,
unless.
that's something we want to check with MoDOT on.
So we can
just
check and see if that's a new policy. I don't,
And
like I
what would
said,
be the
it's been a long
process?
time since we
I agree. I
revisited
couldn't
it,
remember.
so.
Now, I have seen city codes around the country that don't allow what they call the flag lots, where you annex a right-of-way to get out to an area so you can annex it in the city. I think it's fine.
We've never
Personally,
had an
I would
issue
argue
with
for
it.
Okay.
I mean, we've never had a problem with doing that if
And
somebody
it
wants
was
to. go
fire
ahead and do that.
district, you know, that's all now, that's changed, since the rural fire district has been identified. And police, I guess, would be the other.
Police would be the only, like I said, that was, at least for that section west of 100, that's what we were looking at that.
But in reality, doesn't the Washington police generally handle the calls that happen?
Well, what happens is I think they respond first, take care of the situation until either the county, more than likely, the state patrol gets out there if it's an accident on 100.
I just think it's time to have a discussion about it again.
Yeah, we can ask her again.
Worst that can happen is we get shot down and we get no. But what if we could get it done? That's all I'm looking at.
Right.
I don't know. Okay, that's all I got. The sales tax numbers, again, the last page, looks like they were down a little bit. Year-to-date, they're still up about 8.5% for the year. I guess the city can probably look at the same thing. The city sales taxes are probably about the same. County, same way, probably. Anyway, shows growth, and we don't want that to slip. So, anyway, it's a positive report. Anything else?
I got one last thing. I think it was last meeting where I mentioned that the Hyperloop, that we had lost that in Missouri, mostly because there was some sheik that had billions of dollars to put toward it. And then we, at the International Right-of-Way Association meeting last Thursday, the St. Louis Chamber guy that's kind of selling this and keeping track of it between here and Kansas City had said that we were still on the list, if we will, and they expect them to go with more of these. So I'll just try and keep a brief update. And for those of you that don't know, the Hyperloop is going to be pods of 12 to 18 people that'll be traveling at 500 to 600 miles an hour between destinations. So we're still apparently on the list according to the St. Louis Chamber, so I'll keep you updated.
Okay, good. Anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn. You don't need to.
We can't.
Yeah, can't.
We couldn't open it.
Leave, please.
Oh, that's right. We got another vote.
Okay, that's all right. We're good.
I guess we vote on it.
No, yes, we don't need to vote.
Hey, Bill, I think I'm gonna try and bring something up next time to say that this whole growth department, and these whole alternate.
15
big
barges,
folder. It would be nice to have an item to where.
Rail cars,
Months, is there anything new?
This is so big.
Because if you guys get tired of it, I don't know what somebody else.